everybody, and welcome to the Calm Mind Podcast. I'm your host, Ron, and joining me on this journey is my fellow Pokemon YouTuber and co-host, Toby. How's it going, Toby?
It's going good. I'm excited for this, the first episode of the Calm Mind Podcast. How's it going with you, Ron?
I'm good. I think this week has been really busy, so there's a lot of things to talk about. I think for you guys, you're probably wondering, what is this podcast? Why is this happening?
Why is this happening?
How did this podcast come to be? I think you know the story quite well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a case of me and Ron, so we're on other sides of a great ocean, and we don't get to hang out and talk a lot, and so when we do jump in a Discord call and have a chat, it goes on for hours and hours, and it just starts with us talking about Pokemon, and then ends up in these deep, wonderful conversations about anything from media and the things that we love to politics and war. We don't talk about war and politics that much, but, you know, it gets pretty deep, and so I think we wanted an outlet for that.
Exactly. I think like the whole point of this podcast is to actually prove that Pokemon can be the ideal conversation starter, just like it worked for us. And every episode will begin by catching up. Like, I mean, we'll do that soon and talking about anything going on in our lives. Usually like YouTube stuff, maybe podcast stuff, maybe just awesome things that we're doing. But then we will immediately begin our like main segment where we randomly generate a Pokemon and see where the conversation takes us. For example, let's say the Pokemon we generate is Lombre. Well, then we'll talk about how it's based on, you know, the mythical Kappa from Japan and various Mexican stereotypes, which can lead us into a conversation about urban legends or Mexican food. You never know where Pokemon can take us. And once that main segment is over, we'll try to have one last segment at the end, which can be any fun format. Like we can count down, which we'll do in this episode. We'll talk about, you know, our favorite shows or quiz each other on some music or show you guys cut ideas from our channels. You never know. Or dish out some hot gossip about other YouTubers. I mean, Toby.
Do you have hot gossip about other YouTubers?
I assume the British person here has some good tea. You never know.
Actually, I'm coffee only right now.
Oh, really?
See, look at all these wonderful places we've already got.
I actually can't have coffee because of my acid reflux. Can't have caffeine.
Yeah.
You learn first fact of the day.
Learn something new every podcast. So, okay, well, cool. Why don't we start off with what is the kind of first thing, which is just a catch up. And I feel like I've been, since we jumped in this call, waiting to tell you things that have happened in my week and hear about things that are going on yours, but I wanted to save it for the podcast.
Really?
Yeah, well, this week has been sort of a big week of trying new things for me. As well as obviously this podcast. There's been TikTok, which I don't know. Are you using TikTok much at all?
So I used TikTok for, I guess, exactly a year ago during the middle of the pandemic. I made my account, started watching, spending 2 hours a day just scrolling mindlessly through TikTok, and it just wasn't healthy for me. I started uploading, but then the algorithm of TikTok is so different than YouTube. You never know when a video is going to do well or not. So, I stopped. Basically, I deleted the app too because, like I said, it was not healthy for me.
So I was on the exact same page as you. And then I posted a TikTok with Phoebe, my lovely girlfriend, and it did like 500,000 views out of nowhere, which was nuts. And so then this was only about 10 days ago, and then I posted another one with Phoebe, and it was just me quizzing her. It was me randomly generating a Pokemon, much like we'll be doing in this podcast, and asking her, hey, who's that Pokemon? Can you let's do some questions? And people love it. And we've been this has been such a good excuse for us to hang out and just have some fun with each other. And I've posted maybe 6 of these, all of them to varying degrees of success, but definitely, we're talking minimum tens of thousands of views to 100,000 views. I've got about 30,000 followers on TikTok at the moment, a third of them in the last week. And that's just wild to me. So there's been that. And then the other big thing is I've been invited to take part in a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, which is something I've always wanted to do.
Really?
And a friend of mine from London said, look, we've got a slot coming up in April, and I don't know why I thought of you. And I've never felt more honoured to be considered for a D&D campaign, because I thought, that means you think I'm creative and fun, and I'd love to do those things. And we've worked into the schedule, and it's something I'm wanting to do.
Oh, do you have to go down to London or like?
No, we're doing it all over audio only, much like this podcast, theatre of the mind type stuff. And I'm really excited. We're going to do it all over Discord. There's images and things posted in the chat, apparently. At the moment, I'm just thinking about characters. Have you ever played?
I've played one, like a quarter of a campaign, basically. So, I mean, yeah, once. It's definitely, like, it's all up to the dungeon master. Like, that could change, like, a good dungeon master can drastically change how, fun you're having. Also, like, whether or not you're with, like, your best friends or just, people you just met. For example, if the dungeon master barely plays the game, it'll take, like, literally an hour for one round.
I will be sure to keep you updated in future episodes, I'm sure, as we start playing. We're still a while away from playing. I want to know, man, what's been going on in your week? Tell me about you.
So, remember when I said, like, that, like, 2020 was going to be, like, the year of collabs for me? Where, like, I want to have, like, a lot of, like, collaborations for different things on my channel or other people's channel. As long as I'm having fun. Because I noticed that from observing during the pandemic, streamers basically took over all of online content. I guess it's basically started with, like, Among Us, where collaborations between different streamers is really what people want to see, and streamers turning their content into videos from the streams. I'm not saying that I'm going to become a streamer and make streaming videos, but, like, collaborative content between creators is the number one thing right now. And I think I kind of successfully started doing that, so I'm actually happy about it. But it's the workload is a lot, dude. Like, I'm coordinating, like, 4 different videos at once. Usually I'm just making 1 video a week, right? I also have this 4 artists designing Pokemon from the same description. That's a thing now. That's a constant part of my life.
Don't forget this podcast. You know, this is a collaboration that you have, I think, put a great deal into organizing and making happen.
Yeah, this is definitely my baby. It's hard to know which to prioritize. Redesigning Pokemon of my viewers, like, all of these things where it's not just me now. I have to coordinate with a lot of other people, and it's definitely hard, but it's definitely fulfilling because, like, people really are into it way more than just the average content.
Have you ever considered getting an assistant?
The number one thing people always say is, like, get an editor, right?
Yes.
But, like, it's come to the point where editing is basically a fraction of the workload. It's just not worth giving it to someone.
Sure.
And then the other one, I mean, like, what would the assistant do? Just, like, manage this?
I guess. You can't
manage collabs through assistant. Even, like, the bigger YouTubers, like, they're talking to the other YouTubers when they're collabing.
I don't think it's so much managing the collaborations, but maybe it's more managing, like, just the other stuff in your life that needs to get done. Whether it's, like, even just helping with, like, cleaning, washing up, cooking, arranging food, arranging this, that, and the other. There are so many elements of life that, like, you've got to go to work, be the boss, do all of the things for the self-employment thing, and then you've got a million other jobs to do on the side of that. And I guess it's just about freeing up your brain space to work on the bit that needs the highest priority. It's something I've certainly imagined and thought about, but I feel like I'm not at the stage yet where I can afford it and or would really benefit from it. But, like, me and Dan, who live together, like, we have a cleaner who comes just once a week, and between splitting that between everyone who lives in the house, it's just one thing that, great, we don't have to worry about that. For the sake of the split, it's super worth it to just free up that brain space to be thinking about creative projects.
Yeah, I definitely get it for, like, real life stuff, not job things. But
sure.
I mean, I don't have much of my stresses don't come from, like, having to clean or whatever. Like, I want to get, like, a manager for brand deals, because I'm terrible at reaching out to people at companies or whatever, because I just don't have the mind of, like, asking for things. How do you make it seem that it's mutually beneficial?
Sure, I get it. Well, I mean, first of all, a little self-worth. You've got a ridiculously big YouTube channel that you've built up yourself, and, like, so you are selling something, which is, I know there's that meme of you can't sell, exposure and pay in exposure, but with brand deals, that's literally what you're doing. And I think there's nothing wrong with, so we have a security system for the house. We've got some cameras, and I was going to buy some cameras, and then I was watching YouTube reviews. Which camera should I buy? And then I went to the brand of camera that I was watching the review of, because the reviewer said, hey, thanks to this company for sending me out. And I went, well, I'm a YouTuber. They already work with YouTubers. So I'll just send them a message because it's a product that I'm actually interested in, and ask them, hey, do you do any work with YouTubers? I'd love to be able to maybe get hold of some of the product. And doing that then opened the doorway to actually future paid collaboration. Actually, it turned out to be the case that they said, no, we're not doing that anymore. So I ended up buying the cameras, and then a week later they said, oh, actually we are doing that. And I said, well, at this point, if you want to work together, you have to pay me, so this is my rate. And so it led into a nice string of 2 or 3 collaborations, and then the person from that PR department moved to another PR department in another company, and so then I got a string of brand deals with that company, all through just one Twitter DM to say, hey, I'm interested and available. You know, and I think it's even better when you approach a brand, because then the brand knows, hey, they must really like our product.
Well, that's actually that is the problem, where it's like, I've been using a lot of these products for like years, even before I was a YouTuber. Like, let's say, I think the #1 company I would want to get sponsored by is like Adobe, right? But it's like, sure, I've been paying for these products for so long. How can I, like, it feels kind of dirty to like to ask, hey, can you give me things for free when I'm already paying for your service, I guess. But I'm definitely motivated to like get a lot of ads for our podcast. It's definitely a tough thing.
Yes, I mean we'll have to build up to it. We should talk about that. We should talk about the things that starting a podcast. You got to choose a name. You got to choose.
Coming up with a name was, we had like 30, 20 ideas.
Something like that.
And every single one you have to like check. Oh, has someone used that name? Even if
someone used it. Do we go on?
Because like we wanted a lot of like, Pokemon related names, right? But even like moves and abilities are just normal words, right? Mm-hmm. Like the only thing that was like different maybe was like Delta Stream, which was that was a cool name, but it has nothing. A very cool name. Has nothing to do with anything. Like, what does that have to do with our podcast?
We were trying to find that perfect spot between, there's like that element of Pokemon, which we know anyone listening to this will really, really enjoy, but also it's kind of separate from Pokemon. It can have its own branding. It can have its own identity outside of that.
Yeah.
And we were looking at, like, do we combine True Green 7 with Birdkeepertoby in some way? Is there a 7 birds kept rod? It just didn't turn into anything.
Is there a Pokemon, like a flying grass type? Like we thought of like Tropius, as a mascot, but like, what did that do with anything? I mean, we could have had like us lying down on a Tropius on the sunset.
There will be comments on this with like amazing names that we should have gone for. No. That's the worst bit about all of this.
We should have done like it'll
come down to that.
A test like live stream. I mean, we did a lot of tests. Like, for example, we did like a pilot test. We technically shot already the first episode, but Toby, tell him what happened to the first episode.
Do I have to? I may have not been recording the whole thing, and I felt, do you know what, this is all going on last week, I felt absolutely gutted, because we were in there in the middle of that podcast flow, and the devastation on your face, which no one can see, but they probably could have heard it if it was being recorded in your voice. If it was being recorded, they would have heard it. The recording on my end messed up. I can confirm, at this point in time, recordings are going. Multiple recordings are going.
We have 4 recordings, basically.
There's no way. Fingers crossed. Touch wood. Do you know what? I'm not even going to say it. This is fine. This is all going to be okay.
This is good. And then we also have to like coordinate, like just based around your life. You were having a lot of things going on. We wanted to know when to start. And we were basically, we had this idea like many, many months ago, maybe half a year ago. We were already like coming up with names and stuff, but then you moved house.
We've both been dealing with YouTube at a peak time while there's been new games, although obviously that affects me I think a bit more directly than it affects you, but you've also had your own plans, like you said earlier. You've had the collaboration stuff going on, and when you're someone who's self-employed and you're juggling a million projects, and D&D comes out and you want to do that once a week and anything and everything else, it's
I don't know how you can. It took us all. It took some time to find a date for us to record together, every episode now. But now you have also this D&D thing. How are you going to do that along with your other podcast? You just hanging out with friends.
Not without great difficulty, I'll tell you, because I got asked, and my first thing was, where is this going to fit into the schedule? And then it was like, okay, they play on a Sunday, I stream on a Sunday. So what if I want to do both? Can I do both? No, I can't do both. I won't have the energy for that. Okay, could I move the podcast, the stream to another day. Well, this day we do this day we do that. Dan streams here. I don't want to overlap his stream. Maybe he'd be willing to edge his stream here. It was very close to, I'd love to do Dungeons and Dragons, but it's just not going to happen, you know, and just taking the L on that. But luckily we found a way to work it into the schedule. I'm going to be moving my streams, provided I continue them by the time that Dungeons and Dragons come out, because that's the other thing. Everyone in the house has a bet of when I'm going to stop streaming, because they think that I'm not going to keep doing it, which is a fair assessment based on past versions of the stream. But I'll be moving the stream from Sundays to Monday evenings if all goes to plan. Yeah, but
only because like whenever I stream, it's also on Sunday, and it was cool how you ended your stream always when I would start my stream. So it's like, you never know if Toby wants to raid me. I would benefit from. You don't get anything from it, but I would.
Wait, were you streaming on Twitch?
Not on Twitch, but like sometimes you're like, hey, you should put a link to Ron's YouTube thing.
I'm thinking though of, and this will affect you for the next couple of weeks though.
Yeah,
I am thinking of cross streaming to multiple platforms.
I don't know how that is done.
I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. And there's a big controversy about it in terms of the Twitch partner program. Are you familiar with it? I'm
familiar that it's not a good thing. I don't know the specifics though.
I could lose my Twitch partnership if I stream to other platforms.
So that makes sense, because this was a popular thing to do like 2-3 years ago. I haven't seen it at all last year.
Twitch just doesn't want you doing that, which is silly, because I actually think if I were to multi-stream to YouTube and Twitch, it would probably benefit Twitch greatly to bring people over. I think that's just my circumstance. Maybe it would, you know. So I'm going to risk my Twitch partnership and do that. But that also means that YouTube audience, maybe for the next couple of weeks, I can push them over to what you're streaming. What are you streaming at the moment?
When I stream, it's usually just creating a video. I mean, over the last few months, it's been actually like gameplay, which I don't like streaming gameplay, honestly, because like viewers, a lot of backseat gaming, a lot of just. There's nothing to talk about really, so it's like they don't know what to talk about. But if it's me creating a video, for example, like writing a script or like coming up with ideas and stuff, you know, there's an actual topic for the chat to talk about, so they don't just go crazy. Like for example, I was streaming like my first few hours of playing Arceus, right? And it's like there was a point where they were just having their own conversations. They weren't even talking to me, and it was like, what was the point of them even being there? While it's really fun when we're just creating a video on stream. But usually it's like we have to go through every Pokemon and like rate them or something like that. Oh yeah, we were doing a tier list. that's usually fun on stream, because it's like, what's the point of just doing it by yourself? Yeah, there's nothing. It's always just elevated when other people are there. So that's the point of streaming for me. Doing things that would have been tedious without people watching.
So good attitude to have. I think streaming is such a hard thing to break into, and if you can view streaming, as we're fortunate to be able to do, as a peripheral, as an extra to the content creation and not as the goal of the content creation, it can be a nice sort of window of opportunity to share something new with your audience that you don't normally have. But people who are like full-time streamers, I don't envy them. It's just like, you know, like right now I feel like if I stream, it benefits the YouTube ecosystem and everything that I'm doing. But if I was just focused solely on streaming, I'd just be streaming all the time. I'd be live all the time, and that would just be so draining. I
mean, again, I'm a YouTuber because I want to make videos, not because I want to stream.
Yes.
So it's like people always forget that. It's like they always tell YouTubers to stream as if that's part of the job. It's like, I mean, it could be.
If you want it to be,
yeah. But it's like, nah. Majority of YouTubers are here because they like making videos. They were maybe the type of kid to even make videos before YouTube was a thing. So it's like, yeah. Don't ever say, Ron, why aren't you streaming? Because it's like that's not my job.
Yeah.
But this is not my job. I think this podcast, I'm gonna go full force. It's actually fun producing a podcast. And like, just in case you guys were confused, the rating of this channel, what are we allowed to talk about basically on this podcast? Well, we can talk about basically everything. But I'd say like the rating is a Marvel, like the same as a Marvel movie. Anything that Iron Man can say, we can say. So we're gonna have to study what has Tony Stark said. We're allowed to say that.
I wish I could say the things Tony Stark says. He sounds so cool all the time, apart from when he's making like mildly, I don't know, sexist comments. But other than that, he sounds really cool.
Phase 3 Tony Stark, not Phase 1
Yeah.
Tony.
after character growth,
Exactly.
Tony Stark is yeah, who we want to aspire to be. Definitely, though, don't worry about if you've got particularly sensitive ear holes. Do not worry about us blasting out some wild exploitatives, which would be a first for me on the internet, certainly, and I think
Really?
first for you as well. Oh, yeah. I've definitely been caught with a microphone live that I thought was not live, swearing at technology.
That's my
It
worst
wasn't
one.
anything bad. It wasn't like I was saying anything like horrendously offensive.
Yeah.
It was just I was having issues with the microphone, and I said, sorry, stream, I've got to disappear. This is another reason I don't want to be a streamer. Sorry, stream, I've got to disappear. My microphone is messing up. And then I hit stop being live and swore at my microphone. But I had not hit stop being live, and that was just out there for the world to see. But other than that, it's been a relatively calm 7 years of Birdkeepertoby.
Good. I'm glad. I don't want you to get canceled just as we start a podcast.
Yeah. Oh, wait, that story? No. It wasn't anything that bad.
I think it's time for us to start our main segment of the podcast. This is what we're always looking forward to, where we randomly generate a Pokemon and we just talk about whatever we want to talk about. So I think, I'm just going to generate a Pokemon. You ready, Toby?
I think, I think the audience are going to be surprised at just how far conversation can go as a result of
This works.
just randomly generating a Pokemon. But we've done this like 3 or 4 times now, and it definitely works. So let's hear it. Who do we have today?
Try it with your friends, guys. It's fun. All right. Our Pokemon, the Pokemon of this podcast, is the very first episode. Parasect! Oh, number 47.
Cool.
That's like one of the few Pokemon I know the number of because it's my brother's favorite number, and he just memorized the Pokemon that it corresponds to. So, number 47, Parasect. I mean, I think we know why this is more fun to talk about than any other Pokemon right now, because of Arceus, basically. Like, dude, like, are you not encountering, like, super aggressive Parases in Arceus?
Yeah, I mean, Paris has a lot more attitude in Legends of Arceus than I seem to have imagined a Paris having. I mean, I just think Parasect's cool in general, but go for what's happening in Arceus for you with it.
Like, I'd never assumed that Paris were aggressive, especially because, in the anime, it was shown as, like, a wimp, right? So when you see this, this Paris, defending its territory, and then, like, a huge Parasect in the back, like, this mob boss Parasect, like, controlling the Parases, it's like, okay, I have a completely different perspective on these Pokemon just from, like, one encounter of it. And that's what I think Pokemon should be about. I think that's what the games should try to replicate in every game, have multiple instances of this. Like, I can't think of another Pokemon where it's like my perspective is completely different because of Arceus, but Parasect is definitely, that Parasect line is definitely
I agree, actually, because there's that moment where when the world is just opening up to you for the first time and you can choose to battle your first alpha in the Cricketune, but I believe you can actually either just before that or just after that, you can go off, and I think the most likely alpha that you'll encounter is that Parasect that's sitting down in the Obsidian Fieldlands, guarded by a wall of Paris. And you're right, they're so overly aggressive, it seems unnecessary. But I suppose that's a nice thing to do for a Pokemon that has been historically seen as a bit of a wimp and a bit of a 4-time weakness to fire. Who really cares? It's not the main bug of the Kanto region. It's not had its time to shine, and that, like, maybe that's now happening.
And it makes sense, based on the lore. It would be a great, like, if you're being taken over by a fungus, by a parasite, it would cause you to now just attack everything and do mindless actions, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like, Parasect in general is probably one of the most interesting lores and origins,
Well, that's why when you said Parasect, why I sort of perked up is, like, for me, Parasect is a Pokemon that really evokes, like, 2015 creepypasta YouTube. Those early videos of like Jay-Wit's videos are like creepy Pokedex entries. You say that, and there's like 2 Pokemon that come to mind. It's like Hypno and Parasect, and it's like, here are the dark, twisted, creepy things happening in the world of Pokemon, and that spawned like a whole genre of video that definitely I've more than dipped my toe into, and, like, honestly, I think Pokemon theories kind of are rooted in that creepypasta world. Yeah,
if, like, Parasect or Hypno didn't exist, like, our channels may not exist. Like, same thing for me. Like, I got into Pokemon while watching. I got into Pokemon again, like, my resurgence, and, like, I became, like, a lifelong fan because of those videos that, Jay-Wits and Tamashi and people like them made. I remember like in high school, like getting back into Pokemon after not playing for like 2 years or something, and I'm at night, in my dark room watching these scary creepypasta videos, and it's like I feel something. Pokemon makes me feel things. It's not just like me playing the games. I'm getting emotions from them. And yeah, so we can be thankful for Parasect. And I think just in general, like the whole like zombie thing, it's like I think Parasect is one of like the most creative like just zombies in all of media.
It really is. It's one of those as well, the moment you learn, oh, this is based on something in the real world as well. This is the cordyceps fungi that infects ants, and sprouts from their head, and its spores kind of go everywhere, and you're like, oh, they didn't just make that up. That's like a real terrifying thing. It's that perfect blend between, if you've never looked at a parasect twice and you just think it's a big mushroom bug, it's just that. But then the moment you learn these things, it suddenly takes on a whole new life and a whole new meaning, which I think is something that your channel has I've always thought of you as that being one of the sort of core tenets of your channel, actually, is like exploring origins, meanings, real world reflections of things that happen in the Pokemon world to make them more enjoyable.
Yeah, I think the number one message is to enjoy the real world through the franchises that we enjoy, like Pokemon, like any other show that I watch or game that I play. I think you can find everything that you play, every piece of art is from the real world, is inspired by things in the real world. Sure. So I think, first Parasect is a good example of that. But also, it's funny because, zombies are a huge part of media, right? In the 2010s, starting from I guess Walking Dead may have made that more popular than it was before. But then, I think ever since the pandemic, zombies have died down in popularity. I think that was like not the nail in the coffin, but like, because are there still like zombie things?
I think there probably are projects going on, but you're certainly right. Like, I remember playing the Resident Evil 2 or 3, our remake, that came out right at the beginning of the pandemic, and there's a cutscene, and obviously this is a remake of a 1990s game, but I was playing it, and there's this moment where the opening cutscene's talking about this viral infection that's going around the world, and it was like, yeah, that's now isn't the time. It just doesn't feel like this is something I want to think about that much. I think people are using video game as a escape from the world, and typically the way that we go about our zombie storytelling is an infection or a virus or something along those lines. But Parasect's still fun because it's just totally outlandish and not anything anyone could even believe could happen to people, but it's real. It happens to ants all the time.
Well, actually, it's the opposite. Really, like because of that, I actually like it more than like the actuals, like just the zombies that we see in media, because they're just like virus zombies. While this is more like this is actually way more realistic than the average zombie. Like The Last of Us, I guess, is the same thing, right? With the cordyceps virus.
Yes.
Not virus, but fungus. So I think those are my favorite types of zombies. Not like the virus stuff, but things that could be realistic, or things taking over you. Like, I guess, like The Thing, stuff like that.
I was going to say, do you have a favorite sort of depiction of zombies in media? Because there's so many.
Well, it may just because we're looking at a Parasect right now, but I'm thinking Parasect. I don't really consume a lot of zombie-related media. I obviously know it through osmosis, in just things that everybody knows, like all these franchises, these famous franchises like Walking Dead and stuff that I haven't actually watched. But I think my favorite zombie... what's it called? What's the movie with Will Smith? I Am Legend?
Oh, I Am Legend?
Dude.
Yeah.
I think, what were those? Cancer zombies? What were those?
I can't remember. It's been a long time since I watched.
Well, that's funny because that's my answer, but I don't remember why. I just remember
they were. I think there's a deleted scene, or maybe it was in the movie. I can't remember, where they sort of reveal that they have a level of intelligence to them that's like you can communicate with them if you just take the time, but if you run away from them, they like eat you, that kind of thing. But I don't remember if that was canon to the film or the book.
It was definitely in the film where like it's revealed that they're intelligent, and it's like as if the whole time he was destroying these zombies, but they are actually afraid of him. He's the legend. Like they're scared of him and they want him to take him down because he's destroying their communities. Or at least that's what's in the book apparently that it's based on. It's more just alluded to in the movie, while in the book it's actually like reality. That is the story, which is very interesting. I love that. Like I love when any piece of any story shows you a completely different perspective. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of things that we watch. I mean, we'll talk about that, and I guess in our last.
Oh, I'm sure.
In our last segment, they're like. I mean, we can start our last segment now, honestly, where we talk about our, favorite shows,
TV shows.
But like, I guess Attack on Titan is an example, where it's like it shows you a completely different perspective of what you thought was the reality, and then it recontextualizes the entire story.
Dude, the Titans. I just on a season 1 basis level, no spoilers whatsoever kind of thing.
Yeah, guys, no spoilers in the comments either.
Giant naked humans that want to eat you for the sake of eating you, and it's like it's just so wonderful as a horror tactic. It's so like bizarre. I was sort of thinking of them as kind of like zombies.
I was going to ask, are they zombies?
Are they? Aren't they? But it's like we're on the same wavelength there. I was like thinking, like, do I ask that? I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything. But I'm just sitting there thinking, like, even just on a level of like. Because we, it's in that first line, we realize that humanity, that we're living in a pen and humanity is the cattle or something along those lines. And it's just that they're looking up at these giant creatures who want to eat them. And they may as well be cattle looking at people going, oh, you're going to eat me. And
that's what you think the relationship is in the beginning of the show. You think that's the relationship, but as you watch the show, you find out it's different than you think. And that's what I want, more shows like that. That's what I want to see, where it's like all of a sudden, twist, everything is not as it seems. I want more. I mean, are there any other shows that any kind of media that you've consumed that is like that? Because I want more of that. If you have any answers, maybe even
where you're watching something and then there's a kind of big reveal that things aren't quite as they seem.
Yeah, and it's done well, like Attack on Titan.
Yes, there's a show. Have you watched a show on Netflix called The Good Place?
Oh yeah, I finished. I love The Good Place.
It's great, right?
Okay, well,
that's absolutely fantastic.
We can't spoil it. That sucks. Oh, but The Good Place is a perfect example of that.
Right, that's what I was thinking. I'm just like, there's a moment in that where a twist happens, and it's one of those nice twists where, like Attack on Titan, it's it's clearly written out ahead of time. They knew where they were going. This was always meant to be the case. You look back at it and you go, oh, of course it was that way and not this way, because they planned it and they wrote it that way.
And I mean, for anybody who hasn't seen, doesn't even know what The Good Place is, it's a show that takes place in heaven, basically.
Yeah.
I can't really say the rest, but it's like our protagonist is now in heaven. That's the story. I love stories where they also just show us things from legend or religions and stuff, like where they
put that kind of twist on it, unique tweak on it.
Yeah, I love seeing interpretations of 1,000-year-old concepts.
Yeah, it's funny because you said heaven, and I immediately felt that heaven was too biblical almost, of a like it's just the afterlife. And it's like a very vague amalgamation of, I think, multiple afterlives. I think but I don't really know.
To be fair, like most afterlives aren't literally just the idea of a place in the clouds that is blissful, and I think that is the closest to that depiction is the Christian heaven.
Yes, sure.
So I would say that show is more like heaven than like than reincarnation of like Hinduism or something.
No, although there are. We don't want to spoil. We don't want to spoil. There are all sorts of elements in the show. It's a really fun show, though. Like, I mean, that's the main thing of it. It's deeply philosophical, but it's also just a lot of fun, and it's a joy, and the characters are very, very magnetic. It's what I like at the moment to describe characters. Magnetic. If a character's magnetic, it's a quality I think is really good in them.
If you make a character that you just want to see them do anything, that's the ultimate kind of character. Like another show that's like that you haven't seen, but I would recommend, is Hunter x Hunter, an anime where the protagonist, every arc is completely different than the last, but you just love the protagonist so much you want to see them do anything. Mm-hmm. And also the plot is really good, so it's not like just what they're doing is useless. It's actually an amazing plot. But yeah, more shows like that where just the protagonists are the draw. I want to see that too.
Yeah.
But before we move on, I just want to say The Good Place, though. Kristen Bell. Huge fan of Kristen Bell. So that's
fantastic.
Also, that's a draw too. I just love seeing her.
Yeah, I mean, she's great. She's absolutely fantastic and so much fun in that. I got recommended that show, and I think literally that night I went home and watched the first 2 episodes and went, I will watch all of this. I will consume all of it. I think you would know pretty quickly, like within the first 2 episodes, if the show is for you or not. And I find it hard to believe that it wouldn't be for a lot of people. I think most people would watch it and go, oh yeah, this is really fun. And the episodes are short as well, so it's not even a big time commitment.
True.
Do you ever worry though with characters that are truly like magnetic, and you just want to watch them, that they gain that plot armor as a result, and that maybe that's not always a great thing?
I only think of plot armor in animation for some reason. I don't remember. Oh yeah, never mind. Game of Thrones has so much plot armor.
Yeah.
But like, because I mean, I think of plot armor is for like fantasy and stuff. I mean, what shows? Do you think Breaking Bad has plot armor?
Wow, that's an interesting question. No, actually, Breaking Bad is a show that's really good at killing people because it's their time to die.
Yeah, so
not doing that.
Plot armor, I think it's like that's what you get when you just make a story that is completely fictional. That's like, you know, in a fantasy world or like a sci-fi world or anything. It's just like that's just part of the story. So I never really am too scared of it. But once there's plot armor for like a show like Breaking Bad, then it's that's okay. If it's a realistic show, plot armor would become a problem.
Well, I can't really comment too much about this because I haven't watched much of The Walking Dead past like season 3. But there's obviously, I know that like they went on with that show forever. It's still going, and they've got Daryl, the guy with the crossbow, and I know he's a bit of a fan favorite. And I'm just like, I know that he's still in the show, and I'm just like, how is that dude still alive? Like, I bet he survived some absolute nonsense where it's like, dude should be dead. But I don't know. I'm commenting on stuff I haven't seen, and I'm probably not going to watch, but maybe someone in the comments can tell me.
Daryl's an interesting... I haven't watched this show, but I know of these characters. They're, you know, famous historical characters, but like, is Daryl like Steve Urkel? You know, have you ever watched Family Matters or know what Steve Urkel is?
I don't. I've heard Steve Urkel's name, but I genuinely don't know.
Basically,
who he is.
A character that appears in the show isn't the protagonist, and then just becomes the protagonist because of popularity. I think.
Interesting.
Is that what Daryl is? Like, is he like the protagonist now?
I would guess that he's the face of the show now, but I don't know, because obviously it was Rick, but I think he was written out at some point. I don't know if he died or
I don't know what the hell is up with Rick.
What's going on there, but I think Daryl's like the face of the show. I'm trying to think of other examples of that though, but because I can't. I guess there
Parks and Rec. I think Andy, who's played by Chris Pratt. Nah, he doesn't become the face of the show. Nah, it's just like an ensemble. Whenever you have an ensemble cast of very talented actors, they just become more popular. But nah, that show, all the characters. There
are definitely shows where, and it's so dumb that my brain is thinking of Glee right now, but there are definitely shows that in season 2, like a new character will be introduced, and then they're just sort of part of the main cast forever. And by the end of the show, like there's the big kind of, okay, we're saying goodbye to everyone, and they're like hugely included because it feels as if they've always been there since like day one. But and I think there's a number of shows. I don't know why I can only think of Glee, but because Darren Criss' character in that. But there's always a character who shows up and just sort of becomes part of the cast by season 2.
I guess that happens. Yeah, I mean, like what, Avatar Toph. I mean, again, doesn't become the protagonist.
Perfect example of that, right?
Or I was thinking also like The Office is a good example where Jim is basically the protagonist by the end of the show. When I think in the beginning it was Michael's,
yeah, it felt like Michael was the lead character, and I think they quickly realized that people's interest was in the Pam and Jim story and that kind of thing.
So this is the first episode. I think we're allowed to make it a little longer than usual.
Yep.
Do you want to get into our last segment, or you think we have time?
I think we should, because we've naturally kind of ended up there anyway. And for those listening, what is our final segment?
Our final segment is just our top 5 favorite shows, because I think that's a good way for you to understand what topics we may talk about in the future. And the next episode, maybe we'll talk about our favorite movies, and then the episode after that, maybe our favorite like games or music
or whatever. Yeah.
But shows are definitely a thing that you and I talk about a lot. I mean, this is not a show podcast, but it's really part of who I am. The fiction that I watch is a big part of my identity, which is, I mean, we can comment on that later. But how about I'll go first with, like, I guess my 5th favorite show. I mean, we've already...
What do we do if we've got the same shows on the list?
Then we'll both talk about it at the same time.
Great. Okay, cool.
So my 5th favorite show is Attack on Titan, I guess. Or at least that's what I come up... I mean, it probably is... I don't know, you never know. It could be my 10th favorite show. But these are the 5 shows that I actually want to, like, talk about in the podcast. And Attack on Titan, I think we can both agree, one of the best plots for a show, one of the best mystery boxes. And again, not because it has a mystery, but more because it answers those mysteries in a completely satisfying way, compared to any other show. Like, what's another example of a show that has, like, a mystery box?
Lost is the one that famously does it wrong every time.
Exactly.
And that they sort of, like, what's his name? The director J.J. Abrams, like, famously was coined that mystery box, like, terminology as a result of Lost, which is a shame because I think it's the worst implementation of that very concept.
I mean, I feel like that's how a lot of media where, like, the people who start it, you know, people iterate it from the first trope and make it better, make the trope better. But yeah, so I feel like Attack on Titan is one of the best examples of a great mystery box, amazing lore as you go along. But I think a lot of shows that I watch have really good lore.
It's got a few bits of world building right off the gate that just make you drawn to it, whereas it, you know, like we say, it's giant humans are eating small humans. What's that about? And then there's everyone's living inside of a wall. What's that about? Don't worry, small humans have swords and can fly and use those swords. So there's that element, and these are just 3 really unique, immediately identifiable traits of Attack on Titan that you know what you're watching. There's nothing else going on that's the same as this show. And then you're drawn into the characters. Well, then you're drawn into the mystery. And then I think later on you start getting drawn into the characters. And then as mysteries start getting solved and resolved, there's the big thing that happened to both me and my housemate is the temptation to go back and go, hang on, I was watching it for all of these peripheral reasons, these kind of surface level reasons. Yeah. Now I understand what's going on. Let's watch this again. And suddenly it takes on a whole new life. It's actually, I agree, it's one of my top 5 easily. It's fantastic. One
of the most, like, rewatchable shows. When any mystery is rewatchable because now everything's recontextualized. But, like, for example, it is flawed. Like, the first season isn't as good as the rest because the first season, the draw is just the action. But then as it reveals that, no, this show has depth, the show becomes way better. And, like, you're there for, like, the politics and the humans and the lore, not for the fights, which are even better than in the first season. So it's, like, it's only elevated. If you only watch the first season and you're not into it, trust me, the 3rd season is a complete opposite. And, I mean, Game of Thrones was, like, I guess my 5th favorite show at the time. Until, like, the last season, and it went a little bit down. I still like Game of Thrones a lot, but it's, like, now less rewatchable than I think Attack on Titan is because the ending isn't as satisfying, but you can still enjoy the first few seasons of Game of Thrones as much.
My issue with people's issues with Game of Thrones is simply I get it. I'm right there with you. You know, like the plot. I would never advocate for less. You know, I'd love to have seen more series of Game of Thrones, which are clearly needed. But there's that element of I can't not watch it, look at the zombie dragon on screen, or look at like this cool battle going on, and go, this isn't the greatest on-screen battle I've ever watched, you know, or whatever. I was actually really fortunate. The Battle of Winterfell that happens towards the end. I think we're out of spoiler territory for that show now. The Battle of Winterfell. There's a battle at Winterfell. This happens. Anyway,
what's Winterfell?
What is a Winterfell? That battle happened the day I got to watch. That was the same day that I got to see Avengers Endgame.
Whoa.
And I got to see Avengers Endgame on the IMAX, and there was this agreement in the house that sort of me and Dan just nodded at each other and went, we're never gonna have another day of this level of elevated media, because Marvel, it was like, you know, 10 years of build up, and Game of Thrones, it was like 10 years of build up, all for these sequences, for these battles, and it just happened to land on the same day, and we just sat there and went, we're in for such a treat today. This is going to be the best day in the history of entertainment for us. And it was fantastic, genuinely.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll talk about films in the next episode. Oh, yes, we're talking about films.
Oh, Marvel.
But yeah. yeah, I mean, Game of Thrones and Attack on Titan, amazing music. I was gonna mention, like, I think music.
Oh yeah.
Is literally the reason I started both of those shows was the intro. I'm like, wow, this is an amazing intro that's going viral. Let me watch it. It happened for both shows. I enjoyed my experience.
Do you know what you would love? You would love. So I can't say his name. Romain Joaldi, who does the music for Game of Thrones. He does a show. Like a live music show.
Really?
He bought it to the music of Game of Thrones. They bought it to the UK. Me and Dan watched it. You would love it. It's a spectacle. He brings out all of these instruments and he plays the tracks live. They had a violinist come on and do one of the tracks, and she was like suspended in the air by wires. So she was like sort of feet off the ground playing the violin with rose petals falling down from this light stream. It was incredible. And I think watching music live of the shows that you love, while there is some piece of media going on as well. Like, I've been to the Pokemon Symphonics. Have you been to those?
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they're great. But like for that, it's just a screen with stuff going on. But this was like a real immersive, theatrical performance that was going on alongside the music.
Well, it happened. They do the same exact thing for Attack on Titan. So for example, like the composer of Attack on Titan, very famous composer just in anime in general, and even like technically has like a pop career where he like collaborates with like famous pop artists and makes like amazing songs that are as epic as like the opening for Attack on Titan. So Hiroyuki Sawano, I think his name is, like does the exact same things. Like there are shows like that for Attack on Titan, and like he does also the Kill la Kill, one of the also an anime with his soundtrack, amazing soundtrack. I think. Yeah, music really. Music isn't just a background thing for me. For a lot of these shows, I noticed the music. I honestly, all of these shows, I noticed the music. I'm looking at my list. The music is a huge part of the show. I think.
Yeah.
It's funny because like music got me into Attack on Titan, and then Attack on Titan is the reason why it was my first anime other than Pokemon. So, the music got me into anime even. So it's like, I owe my life to audio. So, Toby, what about you? Would you have a fourth favorite show or a first favorite show?
Do you know what? I'm going to throw something into the mix here that I haven't thought about a lot lately, but I'm thinking of going on a rewatch journey of, which is, are you familiar with Bojack Horseman?
Yes, I am familiar with it.
Yeah. You watched it?
I've watched clips. I've watched clips.
I hated this show when I first watched it. I just couldn't get into it. Didn't enjoy the humor. Didn't understand it. And then I watched it again. And I went, oh, this is funny. That's really clever writing. And there are a lot of... Because Bojack Horseman, for those of you who don't know who are listening, is set in a world where everyone is an animal. So people are horse people, owl people, dog people, cat people. And there are a lot of very surface-level animal jokes, like the owl who asks, who, all the time. It's silly, it's dumb, it's not that deep. And that's fine. But then those are complemented by these deep philosophical deep dives. And really quite elaborate jokes that stretch out over seasons, that sort of rear their head here, there, and everywhere. Little jokes that I think the writers don't expect you to notice until the sort of fourth, fifth rewatch. And that level of cleverness is something I really enjoy about the show. But it's also a lot. I think emotionally the show is a lot. And it's like... I remember watching it at a time when I was particularly low, and I think that was a really big mistake. I don't think it helped me with my lowness. I think it's a show that you should watch when you're only mentally in a great place.
Exactly. I mean, like, that's probably the reason I just don't start it, because I'm not in the mood to watch a sad show. Even though I would enjoy that show. I'm about to finish the sitcom that I'm currently watching, 30 Rock. Amazing sitcom. Okay. I'm about to finish that. I'm looking for the next sitcom. It could be probably like New Girl or maybe Bojack Horseman. But that's the thing, like Bojack Horseman is always in my mind, but it's like, do I want to start it? Am I in a good place to start it? Probably not. So it'll be pushed back like a few years maybe. But no, that's definitely a show that everybody says is amazing. Well written.
Do you have a comedy that that is on your list?
So yeah, actually the next one is Parks and Rec is my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Comedy show of all time. I mean, I've watched The Office. I love The Office. I'm watching 30 Rock. It's amazing too. I watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I've watched a lot of comedies that I enjoyed. But Parks and Rec, I think that tone is my favorite. The characters, I think, probably my favorite cast. I think that is the reason why I like it the most. It's my favorite cast for a comedy. Yeah. There is an ensemble cast of famous comedians like Chris Pratt, Aubrey Plaza. I think Amy Poehler is a genius when it comes to comedy. She does it so well. And people are always turned off by the first season. It's like just not good at all. They don't know what to do with it.
I've watched the first season and I think got like 2 episodes in season 2 and just didn't continue.
It's 6 episodes, so it's like it's not a. Is it 6 episodes? I think it's 6 episodes.
Short, yeah. It's short,
so it's like it's not a problem. You can just get through it. You have to watch it to understand, but you gotta get through it. Season 2, all of a sudden they know what to do with these characters. They know what these characters' personalities are, and they become these famous historical television characters. Like, I think
so. I've only ever watched The Office, which I adore, by the way. It's probably also somewhere around my top 5.
Yeah.
What makes this better than The Office for you?
I think it's the balance. It's like the same. It's probably the most similar show to The Office, where it's like this mockumentary style, with where they talk to the camera sometimes. It's a little awkward, right? I think it's not slightly. I think it's way less awkward than The Office, which I think is better for me at least. And the characters are way better, I think, in Parks and Rec. These characters are way more likable. They're like The Office. I think the point is that most of them aren't people you actually want to hang out with.
Right, sure.
Well, Parks and Rec, no, these are half of them. No, almost all of them are really good people. Like even like Ron Swanson is like known as this character that is not personable, doesn't want to be around people, but as you watch the show, you find out this guy is just such a good person, such a caring, good guy. I love dualities. A lot of these characters have this duality of like what they are on the outside versus how you get, once you get to know them, they're completely opposite, or just they have depth to them. While The Office, I don't think a lot of them have that depth. Like only just Jim and Pam and even Dwight, I guess, but Dwight is still kind of Flanderized. Do you know what the term Flanderized means?
Yeah. Where everyone's just kind of a meme of themselves, and that's it. They're just the surface level stuff. No, I think I can agree with that to a level. I think they did good at fleshing out some characters and not others. Like I think Angela is a character in The Office that they really managed to evolve and actually make her almost sympathetic at points, despite her horrible tendencies. But there are characters like the go-to one is Kevin, who I suppose he's just the same joke a lot, which isn't a bad joke.
Yeah, he's a funny joke.
He's in the show the perfect amount. He does his bit, and that's great. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of character growth there for him, I guess. Yeah,
I mean, they're the same like tier for me. I just like Parks and Rec more. It hits.
That's fair.
It's different.
I think is it. Well, okay, so I think what in terms of the comedies,
it could be anything.
Oh, well, I do have one more show written down, but I think it's probably the other one you've got written down. I'm going to just, psychically guess here.
I'll wait for that, then.
Do you have anything that isn't that show?
Yes. 2 that you haven't watched, so I'll be, quick about it.
Okay.
So, I wouldn't say this is an objectively perfect show. Far from it. Naruto. The whole Naruto franchise, that includes, Naruto Shippuden, and Boruto. It's probably the Dragon Ball Z of this generation, not this generation, but my generation, I guess, because it's the most famous anime in America other than Dragon Ball Z, and it's long running and it's still going on technically. So it's when you watch literally 800 episodes of a show, you become attached to this world and show and characters, even though
800,
dude, it's a lot. And I actually watch fillers. It's a terribly paced show. It's not well executed in terms of the pacing, the dialogue, but the actual plot, the plot points, the beats are amazing. Why I love this show and this world, it's more it's more that I love the world than the show. I love the fight choreography. I think it's probably some of the best fight choreography for its time in animation. The world, one of the best unique worlds. You have to watch it to understand it. It's this: what if everybody was a ninja? What if the world was run by ninjas?
Sure.
And it makes sense. They have this whole power system. They have all this politics. I watched the show for the politics, dude. I know the history of this show. I know the timeline. I know all the characters and things that happened. I know why this thing will happen in politics, why this village will do a thing because of this thing that they did in the past, or why the relationships between these villages are good or bad, or why this character's ancestor was, affected what's happening now, or stuff like that. And I can't think of any other show where I know that much of the history of the world. Wow. So that's why I love Naruto. And the other one is, I think, my favorite anime of all time, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I think it just does everything. It's the opposite of Naruto, where it does everything well. Everything that in an animated show at least needs to be done well, it does well. And the plot and the characters are some of the best. Like the characters, one of the best cast in anime. I think I like every character. They're all fleshed out. All of them have depth. The plot is one of the most interesting plots in anime. It's my number one recommendation for anybody who wants to watch an anime. I think it's the first one you should watch.
Once Attack on Titan's wrapped, which is only a couple of weeks away now for me, I will almost definitely, that's my next voyage is Brotherhood, because people have recommended it so many times, and I'm interested in the plot. From the little I've heard about the plot, it sounds like a really fascinating concept, and I'm like, okay, let's give this a go. And it's kind of
like Attack on Titan, not that there's like a huge like twist or anything, but it's more like, I mean, there are a lot of twists, but like it's more like the first arc is completely different than the rest of the show, where it's like, sure. This is the actual plot now. You know what I'm saying? So I love shows that do that. So yeah, I think you definitely would enjoy it. I don't know if it's gonna be your favorite anime ever. You're probably the type of guy who would like Attack on Titan more, but Fullmetal Alchemist, I think you would be able to respect.
Sure. Yeah, always looking for good new things to watch.
And I think now it's time to talk about my favorite show of all time, which apparently is on your top 5 too.
Oh, easily. But I don't know. Okay, so here's the confusion. I don't know whether it's the main show or whether it's the show that comes after. So we'll talk about that. But go on, reveal.
So my favorite show of all time, and also franchise, is Avatar: The Last Airbender, I think. Which does include The Legend of Korra. I am a huge fan of Legend of Korra as well. But I do believe, objectively, Attack on Titan is a way more better balanced show. Oh, sorry, did I say Attack on Titan? I meant Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, I was a bit confused, but yeah.
While Legend of Korra, there are a lot of things that it does way better than Avatar, like, for example, animation. Like, I think it's one of the best animated shows of all time. Like, it's just consistent. Maybe the first half of the second season, because it was a different studio, but is not as good. But if you want to just watch amazing animation, just watch clips of Legend of Korra.
Yeah. I think the thing I have with the difference between the two, and the reason that I don't know whether I prefer Korra or not, is I feel that I've got a complicated relationship between each of the seasons. Season 1 of Avatar I find notoriously slow, and like it's not a show that I'd necessarily choose to rewatch. By season 2 and definitely by season 3, I'm like, wow, this show is incredible. It's one of the greatest shows ever of all time. With The Legend of Korra, it's very up and down. I think season 1 is like not as good as Avatar. Season 2, I think, is like probably the season 2 of Korra, I think, is probably the worst bit of Avatar media. But then season 3 shoots up and becomes possibly the best piece of Avatar media, full stop, in my opinion. I just think season 3 is like a masterpiece in writing, and Zahir is like just an incredible villain. Amazing. And everything going on in that season, I just love it. And then season 4 is once again just an incredibly decent season, while not as good as season 3. I think it's still a wonderful way to end the show, and I think, you know, there are elements of it that are just beautiful. So I find it hard to pinpoint. I know I love this world, I know I love this story and this franchise, but the pacing of it is so, and my enjoyment of it is so up and down across the history.
Interesting. So the first season is very debatable in terms of the quality, because, I mean, I agree with you, it's the worst season of Avatar, but the first season, for example, all like the flaws, let's say, I think really are just the fact that it's just a kid show. And it's like, but for a kid show, the first season is one of the best seasons of kids television ever. While by the second and third season, I guess the studio had confidence in the show and let them just explore the actual story more, instead of having a lot of plots that are way more episodic, I guess.
And it's also necessary, right? Like if you watch all of season 1 of Avatar, you'll have a better time watching season 2 and 3 of Avatar, because you're so much more connected to these characters.
Everything that happens in the first season is important to the plot. Like 100%. There's only like 2 episodes that aren't, so it's like,
it's
definitely.
Just I think when you watch season 1 without the context of 2 and 3, it feels very filler, or like a bit of a slog, and it's like, where's this going? Can it make its mind up? But it just takes a little bit of a while to get there. But I feel like once it does, and that's not to say there's nothing, like, I think there's a very early episode where they visit the air temple, and you see the skeleton of one of the monks that Avatar Aang knew 100 years ago, and it's like this hugely impactful, for a kid show, really dark moment where you kind of get a little glimpse into this show is going to be something more. But that only rears its head a couple of times. The other episodes I can think of is the one where Zuko, who is the bad guy throughout all of season 1 and who is our main antagonist, helps Aang escape a Fire Nation prison as the Blue Spirit. Is that what he's called, the Blue Spirit?
Yeah.
We get to see a new dimension to the character, which obviously is just one glimpse into like the future of that character.
So Zuko is famous.
Interesting.
It's interesting.
You know?
So Zuko is one of the most critically acclaimed characters in media. I think.
I get it.
So people know. I think that Zuko has some of the best character development of anything I've ever seen. That's the number one thing I can say as a reason to watch the show. The character development of some of these characters is amazing. You'll definitely fall in love with them. But like, for example, like, I mean, there's a lot of episodes in the first season, like The Storm, where you realize the backstories of Aang and of the protagonist and antagonist are intertwined and basically the same. It's like, I think the number one thing you should watch the show for is it's the most complete and best executed, I think, in terms of the story itself. Like the actual plot, the overarching plot, I think one of the best executed, because it's like, it's very satisfying. Everything was thought of, ahead of time. And I think it's very rare to see this kind of format for a show where there's an overarching plot, but with individual contained episodes.
Yeah.
That still, contribute to the overarching plot. Like what other show has, that kind of stuff successfully?
And nothing feels unresolved in the show. Like everything feels like it hits a very natural conclusion, and all of the characters that we care about and the ones that we meet in passing that maybe we meet again later, all of them feel like they get a very, that's exactly where that character was supposed to go. But you're right, Zuko is possibly one of the best characters, or maybe even my favorite character in all of media.
Really?
The more I think about that, the more I realize that, because I think, obviously, while we all love Uncle Iroh, Zuko is a character who not only goes from being a bad guy to like, season 1 baddie, season 2 he's kind of a joke, or he's helping out the good guys because he has to. It's nothing like that. It's by the end of the 3rd season, he is a hero, just like Aang, and their stories have always been intertwined. They were always meant to be, and it was because of the aid of characters as good as Aang and Iroh, who have been through the traumas that they have been through and come out the other side as good people, that they were able to draw that out of Zuko.
Yes.
And I think, Zuko is very easily, a season 1 Zuko is very easily what an Aang or a Iroh could have become if they had let themselves become enveloped by rage, anger, distress, or trying to achieve a goal that wasn't possible, to get back some old happiness that, it could only exist in the past. I think that's what's really... it's just a beautiful show. I'll go on about it for hours, but we haven't got hours.
What's funny is that we'll definitely talk about this, and maybe even Korra, a bunch of times in the future, because I think there's a lot of things that I want to say, like, for example, like my favorite like tropes. I want to talk about that one time. I want to talk about like my favorite kinds of characters, my favorite kinds of stories. So Avatar will definitely be part of that when we do end up actually talking about those kind of things throughout various episodes of the podcast, or maybe favorite sequels or something. I don't know. Korra would be one of that for me. And that's controversial apparently to say, but like I think the point is that I think the reason why you should watch Avatar, if you are into animated shows, is because these characters are written like real people. Everything that they do makes sense for what kind of character they are, their motivations, their past, the context of who they are in the world that they live in is well written. Definitely well written compared to any other animated shows or kid show that I've watched. Although Arcane, we'll talk about Arcane one time. Once you watch Arcane, we'll talk about Arcane.
Yes, I need to watch it. I need to watch it soon.
Because that's definitely another... Since that's probably my favorite animated show, or Western animated show, since Legend of Korra.
Okay, I'll get on it.
Cool.
I'll get on it.
So now the question is, how does one end a podcast? We don't know. We've never done it before. We've started... We've started a podcast 3 times already by now. We've started podcast 3 times, but we haven't ended one.
We've never practiced the ending before. So I suppose it would be good at this point to say thank you to everyone who's been listening. And if you do want to hear more of our ramblings about things or things that you'd like us to talk about, things that are interesting, you know, if you're wherever you're watching this or listening to this, whether this is on YouTube or on some other podcasting app, let us know. We are very contactable over social media and in the comments section.
So yeah, if you want to know more about like us or even the schedule of the podcast or where the podcast is going, yeah, do follow us on our on Twitter, TrueGreen7 at TrueGreen7 and at Birdkeepertoby, and also definitely you would enjoy this podcast way more if you also watch our main channels, again TrueGreen7 and Birdkeepertoby. We are, I don't know if you know this already, but we are Pokemon YouTubers. That's our job. So that's why this podcast, I'd say half of it is Pokemon related. Technically, we talked about Pokemon for 10% of this podcast? But that's the point. That's what's so cool about this whole thing. It's like we started talking about Parasect and we ended up talking about Attack on
monsters, Titan. Attack on Titan, yeah, that's it. And this is really, like we said at the beginning, this is the goal, is to prove that Pokemon as a friendship tool is fantastic because it can lead you, even if you start with a Parasect, literally to anywhere and everywhere in conversation that, you know, we're enthusiastic about. And at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do, is share the things that we're enthusiastic about.
Yeah, that is literally the reason. So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you in the next podcast episode.
Bye.